Yolanda Cornelia Nikki Giovanni, American writer, commentator, activist, and educator. Can you hear me now, Nikki?
I can hear you.
Okay, that's
All
good.
right.
That's good. Yolanda Cornelia Nikki Giovanni Jr.
My
Boy,
goodness.
I gotta say your whole name. So for first, Nikki Giovanni, I want to say it's my pleasure to have you on the phone.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, it's my pleasure to talk to the midnight hour.
Right. Hey, you know what? I talk to a lot of stars, but I'm gonna tell you something, Nikki. I know you got a great connection with the universe, and I don't want to hog up all the time because I could just ask you a million
You're
questions.
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah. I'm gonna let Dion Jones ask you a question. She just did a whole segment on you a couple weeks ago. Dion Jones.
Good evening, Miss Giovanni.
Oh, good evening. How are you?
I am fine.
Good.
I don't have a question as much as a thank you. When my grandmother passed, I was given the book Grandmothers, and it just touched me, and it keeps me connected to her. And I just want to thank you for that work. So I don't have a question, but just a thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm glad. It's sad to lose. I lost my mother a few years ago. It's very sad, but thank you for letting me know that I'm some comfort.
Yes, thank you.
Now you have such an illustrious career, Miss Giovanni. I want to start by saying you taught at several universities. You was part of the civil rights movement as well, right? Were you a part of the civil rights movement, Miss Giovanni?
I'm sorry?
I say, were you a part of the civil rights movement?
Uh-huh.
Can you tell us what aspect that you played in the civil rights movement?
Oh, like a lot of people, I was at Fisk University, and of course we had the great Diane Nash and Reverend James Bevel, who actually led us in the picketing of downtown Nashville. And I think that Diane has not gotten the, I don't know if it's going to be credit, but I think people don't realize what an important role Diane Nash played in the civil rights movement. We do know that the Nashville students were incredibly important. But I think we all just tried to do our best. And the breaking down of segregation was extremely important. And I think that when we look back on that era, I think that one of the things we did was we opened the doors for things to be we opened the door, for example, for Black Lives Matter. Because if we hadn't broken down segregation, nobody would have thought that they did. And I think it becomes extremely important that each generation does what they do best.
Right. Michael G., you want to ask Miss Giovanni a question?
Most definitely. How you doing again? I'm so glad to have you.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I have a specific question. Now, I understand that after you got, the civil rights movements was very influential during the, 1960s with the, and moving into the 70s, you decided to begin to write children's literature. So what prompted you to start with that? I was born in 71. So what prompted you to start writing children's literature, like just right then and there?
Well, of course, my son was born in 1969, so that was a big incentive.
Okay.
And being a mother changes some of how you look at the world. And I had friends who were having children, and I wanted to be able to communicate. And again, we've got the next generation coming up. I laugh now because I teach here at Virginia Tech, and one of the things that I tease my students about is that I'm their grandmother. And they have to laugh at me. So, I said, they call me Nikki. Nikki, you aren't. I said, yeah, I'm actually, think about it, I'm your grandmother. And we want you to know what a wonderful world it is out there, and that if you do your part and we do our part, we're going to continue changing the world. And I think that's important.
Beautiful.
Yes, Miss Giovanni. A lot of people don't tell us the one work that you think was significant in the civil rights movement that really touched people's hearts. One of your writing works.
Well, I think probably ego tripping, because it has a historical context. I was born in the Congo, and what I wanted to do was trace the incredible history of the black woman. I'm a big fan, as you know, of black women, and I think that everything that's good on earth has come out of black women. And when I wrote that poem, I was able to share my love for my grandmother, my mother, and myself and my generation. I had the pleasure of knowing Mrs. Parks, for example, and I was laughing recently, not ha actually, so much as it's Christmas, and you go to the post office and they have the Kwanzaa stamp, of course, but I was looking at stamps, and I was realizing how blessed I am to know so many people who are on stamps. When I was growing up, nobody black was on a stamp, and now we have almost 40 black Americans on postage stamps, so that, again, we can begin to see how important black Americans are in the history of the United States.
Absolutely. Now, Rocky Thunder, I want to pass the mic to you.
Hi, Miss Giovanni. How are you?
Hi. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Well, I just have to say it really is an honor to meet you or talk to you. My question
It's a pleasure.
my question is, how did you feel when you won? I mean, you're such an amazing person already, but how did it make you feel when you won the Langston Hughes Medal, the NAACP Image Awards, and how did that make you feel? How do you stay such a humble person after winning such prestigious awards?
Well, I'm really very lucky. I have 7 NAACP Image Awards, and I am humbled by that. But I think, your sanity, I see a lot of youngsters coming up today, and they let their celebrity, I guess, I'm not really a celebrity like that, overwhelm them. Michael Jackson should be with us today. He should not, that child should not be dead. And I always wanted Michael to go to Fisk University. And I used to tell people that, and I knew some of Michael's people. And I said, why don't you send him to college? You let him go to college. Oh, Michael doesn't need college. Well, he needs something because he lost himself. And we know that.
Wow.
Because anytime you're playing with, the only thing that works for you is that you get into a casket and see how close to being dead you can be, something is wrong. And I look at some of the other people who are just unhappy. I look at some of the people who should be pleased with what they're doing. They should be happy with their lives. They should be contributing. And they're having problems. They're doing drugs. They're doing alcohol. And there's nothing wrong with either one of them, I guess. I don't do drugs. I do drink wine, and I think that's good. But there's something wrong with people not being happy with themselves. Right. And I think it's because they lost themselves. But we know, you and I know, for example, one of the most important things to do is to read. You need to read books. You need to learn your history, the history of your people. And then you need to contribute. And the people that we all admire are the people who are saying, well, how can I help? What can I do to contribute to the world?
Absolutely, Miss Giovanni. Now, I'm Myron Grace again. I had the pleasure to be trained in nonviolence by Coretta Scott King. Did you know Coretta?
I knew Mrs. King. We didn't hang out. I didn't know Mrs. King, for example, the way that I knew Mrs. Shabazz. Betty Shabazz and I would actually hang out, and I would go up to her house, and we would, cook together. And I've had friends like that. Nina Simone and I would hang out. And I was working on a book with Nina when we lost her. I was so sorry that she passed. But I didn't know Mrs. King like that. I just knew her. And so if we were in Neiman Marcus, we could say, she would say, hi, Nikki, and I would say, how are you, Mrs. King? She was never Coretta to me. But it was always, some of these, the wonderful, great women that you know, it's always a pleasure to just to know that they existed and that you could help them do something if there was something to be done. Margaret Walker, women like that. These are great women.
Right. I got the pleasure to actually sit Miss Giovanni to sit in the room with Betty Shabazz, Coretta, and Jesse Jackson's wife, and actually talk to them for 15 minutes alone. It really blew my mind. Obviously, I was in a dream world or something, and now I'm really in a dream world even now, Mrs. Giovanni. I'm a writer and an author as well as a filmmaker, producer, computer engineer, but you know what? You changed the world with your writings.
Absolutely.
Dion, would you like to ask her another question? Dion Jones.
Yes, you were speaking of celebrities and all, and I just remember your guest spot on Def Jam Poetry. How was that experience working with Russell Simmons?
Yeah, yes, Miss Giovanni. She said, how did the experience with Russell Simmons go? Def Jam comedy spots. Poetry that you did.
Right. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
I said, how was the Jeff Dam poetry sessions that you did?
Oh, I enjoyed that. Russell's a great guy. But you know who, again, one of the people who gets overlooked is Ellis Hazlett. And without Soul, none of these other Soul, Ellis Hazlett did a show called Soul. And I remember Ellis sitting in my living room, and Alan Toussaint was the first host, and it wasn't working. He did that for a couple of things. And Ellis came up to say to me, you know, would you like to host Soul? And I said to Ellis, you know, you're the one who loves this show. Ellis was a friend, and I loved him like that. But it was like, Ellis, this is your show. Why don't you do it? And he said, oh, people wouldn't let me do it. He had a speech impediment. People will laugh at me. I said, no, people won't laugh at you. They'll listen to what you have to say. And I was glad that I was able to help Ellis understand that he should do it. He did Soul, and all of the rest of these shows are going to come out after that. They're coming out. Russell Simmons and all the rest of them are going to come out from what Ellis did on Soul. And that was a very, very important thing. BET is still out there because of Ellis Hazlett.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Rocky Thunder want to ask you about a thing with Jill Scott over the weekend.
Oh, that's my girl. I've known Jill forever. And Jill called to thank me for that, and I called her back. You know, you can't leave a message on her phone because she doesn't set up her answering service. And when I called her back, I finally got her. It was about midnight. And I said, Jill, why don't you, what's wrong with your answering service? She said, I don't have one. I said, I know your mama taught you better. You don't put your answering service on. But that's my girl. She's a sweetheart. Isn't she the nicest person in the world?
Yes,
we love her
absolutely.
music, Jill
Yes.
Scott. We love her music. You know, just so you know, Miss Giovanni, they listening to you in 80 countries around the world right now. That's the power of technology. Over 3 million people in the United States and about 150,000 in Cleveland. So I wanted you to so that everybody is enjoying you. We got about 3 minutes left, Miss Giovanni. What would you say your greatest work is? Mike, answer that question for me. Ask her what's her greatest work.
Miss Giovanni, what would you say is your greatest work to date?
Hello?
Miss Giovanni?
I think she's still there. Miss Giovanni, can you hear us? Not sure what happened. Go ahead, Warren. We can cut it. Just go over there, Mike, and tell her thank you for the interview. All right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm here.
Oh, she here. She there, Mike.
Okay.
What would you say?
I'm here.
What would you say, Miss Giovanni, would be your greatest work to date?
Probably my greatest work would be a poem called Ego Tripping. And the greatest book would probably be my latest book that I wrote after the death of my mother. It's called Chasing Utopia. And I love Chasing Utopia because, one, it was a memory of my mother, and it was a way of helping us to look at things that are lost. And I just hope to, continue to being able to share the things that I know and the things that I understand. Black Americans have a great history. And I think it's so important that the youngsters like yourself even, continue to delve into that history, continue to look into what it is that we have achieved and what we've accomplished, because we are great people. And I think it's time for us to really understand that we are a great people.
Yes, we are great people. I'm going to let my last two hosts, ask you a few questions before we leave in 3 minutes. Rocky Thunder, what would you like to say to one of the great? Miss Giovanni, they listening to you in 80 countries worldwide. What would you like to say, Rocky Thunder?
Well, again, this is Rocky Thunder. Again, I just wanted to say it was incredible having a chance to meet you and talk to you and learn even more things about you. So it was an amazing pleasure to meet you.
Mike G.
Ms. Giovanni? Well, we were gracious to enjoy a conversation with you and this time with you. Oprah said that you are one of her 25 living legends, and we totally agree with her. And so thank you for this opportunity.
Deion Jones.
Yes, as always, thank you for changing the world.
Yes, Miss Giovanni, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming on the Midnight Hour radio show and blessing us with your presence.
Oh, thank you. And next time I do that, I'll make sure that I have a landline. I just don't have one today.
No, that's
because
all right.
Yeah, but thank you so much for inviting me. And tell everybody hello. I know you go all over the world. And just sing a good song for we in America, Black Americans, and what wonderful people we are. So I thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Miss Giovanni.
All right,
Nikki
thank you.
Giovanni. On the Midnight Hour radio show.
Okay.
Hey, we just broke history.
Yes.
Dear.
But they always have their groundings in survival. My man and I can walk down the street together, and if some guy says something out of the way to me, it's an insult. To him, it could be his life. I can walk away from words and gestures and still be a woman. He cannot and still be a man. So little of a black man's existence relies on his acts. His women, mothers, sisters, lovers control his life, and generally so irresponsibly that it can be frightening. And sometimes black women aren't very nice for a lot of reasons. And sometimes we use our power against him for a lot of reasons. And I think some of the hostility is real and must be related to as such. We're angry, and so are they, but it's only when we admit it that we can get anywhere. I don't think a woman cares where she walks if you'll let her walk with you. And I don't think a man cares that a woman talks if she'll talk to him. And if we really understand we are born men and women, and it's our choice whether or not we stay that way, I think a lot will